The Israel-Palestine conflict is a tale of ancient claims and modern politics. In the late 19th century, Palestine was part of the Ottoman Empire. Jews, Muslims, and Christians lived together in relative harmony. But the seeds of conflict were sown in the late 19th century. Nationalism in Europe led to the birth of Zionism. Zionism sought to establish a Jewish state in Palestine. This clashed with the Arab population, who viewed it as their home. As the Ottoman Empire weakened, tensions rose. These early developments laid the groundwork for the conflict. The late 19th century saw the rise of Zionism, advocating for a Jewish state in Palestine. Fueled by anti-Semitism, many Jews saw Palestine as a safe haven. Theodor Herzl, the father of modern political Zionism, published Der Judenstaat in 1896. Jewish immigration to Palestine, known as Aliyah, increased. Early Zionist pioneers established agricultural communities and revived Hebrew. This influx sparked apprehension among the Arab population. The period witnessed the establishment of the first Zionist settlements. World War I dramatically reshaped the Middle East, including the future of Palestine. The Ottoman Empire, allied with Germany, lost control of the region to the British. In 1917, seeking Jewish support for the war effort, the British government issued the Balfour Declaration. This document declared British support for the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people. The Balfour Declaration has had a lasting impact on the conflict. While expressing support for a Jewish homeland, it also emphasized that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine. This ambiguous wording laid the groundwork for future conflict, as both Jews and Arabs interpreted the declaration to support their claims. Following the war, the League of Nations granted Great Britain a mandate over Palestine in 1922. The British were tasked with creating the conditions for both a Jewish national home and self-governing institutions for the Arab population. However, balancing these conflicting promises proved impossible. Jewish immigration continued, increasing tensions with the Arab population. As World War II ended, the question of Palestine became increasingly urgent. The British, unable to reconcile the conflicting promises made to Jews and Arabs, announced their withdrawal from Palestine. The United Nations stepped in, proposing a partition plan in 1947. This plan aimed to divide Palestine into two states, one Jewish and one Arab, with Jerusalem as an international zone. The Jewish leadership accepted the partition plan, seeing it as a long-awaited opportunity for statehood. However, the Arab leadership vehemently rejected it, viewing it as an injustice to the Arab majority. The partition plan was never implemented. Following the British withdrawal on May 15, 1948, Jewish leaders declared the establishment of the State of Israel. This declaration triggered the First Arab-Israeli War, drawing in neighboring Arab states. The war had a devastating impact. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians fled or were expelled from their homes, becoming refugees. By the war's end, Israel controlled more territory than allocated in the UN plan. This period, known as the Nakba catastrophe by Palestinians, remains a deeply traumatic event in their collective memory, shaping their narrative of dispossession. The 1967 war and its aftermath. Tensions between Israel and its Arab neighbors remained high. In June 1967, the Six-Day War erupted. Israel swiftly defeated Egypt, Syria, and Jordan, capturing the West Bank, Gaza Strip, Sinai Peninsula, and Golan Heights. This victory had major geopolitical consequences. The war led to the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. Israel's occupation of the West Bank and Gaza Strip has lasted over 5 decades. Israel's control over these territories has been widely condemned. The 1967 war marked a turning point, shifting focus to the occupation of Palestinian territories. Section 6. A Glimmer of Hope, the Oslo Accords and their Unraveling. In 1993, Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin and PLO Chairman Yasser Arafat shook hands on the White House lawn. The Oslo Accords aimed for a two-state solution based on mutual recognition. However, the Oslo process faced significant challenges. Violence continued, fueled by extremist groups on both sides. The assassination of Yitzhak Rabin in 1995 dealt a severe blow to the peace process. The Oslo Accords, once a beacon of hope, ultimately failed to deliver on their promise of lasting peace. Section 7. The Gaza Strip disengagement, division, and conflict. The Gaza Strip, a densely populated coastal enclave, has become a focal point of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. In 2005, Israel unilaterally withdrew its settlers and military presence from Gaza, dismantling settlements. This disengagement was a significant event, marking the end of Israel's direct control over Gaza's civilian population. However, Israel retained control over Gaza's borders, airspace, and territorial waters. This continued control has had severe consequences for Gaza's economy and humanitarian situation. The rise of Hamas, considered a terrorist organization by Israel, the United States, and the European Union, further complicated the situation. Hamas's control of Gaza since 2007 has led to a cycle of violence and suffering. Israel has imposed a blockade on Gaza, citing security concerns. The blockade has crippled Gaza's economy and restricted the movement of people and goods. The situation in Gaza remains dire, with limited access to basic services, high unemployment, and frequent outbreaks of violence. Section 8, Shifting Sands, Geopolitics of the Israel-Palestine Conflict in the 2020s. The geopolitical landscape surrounding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has undergone significant shifts in the 2020s. The rise of new alliances and the waning influence of traditional actors have created a complex and fluid environment. One notable development has been the emergence of the Abraham Accords, a series of normalization agreements between Israel and several Arab states, including the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan. These agreements, brokered by the Trump administration, have been hailed by some as a breakthrough in regional diplomacy. They have led to increased economic and security cooperation between Israel and its Arab partners, potentially reshaping the region's dynamics. However, the Abraham Accords have also been criticized for sidelining the Palestinian issue and undermining efforts to achieve a two-state solution. Another significant trend has been the growing international criticism of Israel's occupation policies. The International Criminal Court's decision to open an investigation into alleged war crimes in the Palestinian territories has further increased pressure on Israel. The conflict's impact on global public opinion, particularly among younger generations, is also noteworthy. Section 9. The Abraham Accords and a New Middle East. The Abraham Accords signed in 2020 have introduced a new dynamic to the Middle East. These agreements have facilitated diplomatic ties, economic partnerships, and security cooperation. Countries like the UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan are now collaborating with Israel. Shared interests such as countering Iran and fostering economic growth drive these alliances. New markets and technological collaborations, especially in cybersecurity and water management, have emerged. However, the accords face criticism for sidelining the Palestinian issue. Critics argue they normalize relations without addressing the occupation of Palestinian territories. Section 10. Eruptions of violence. The cycle continues into the 2020s. Despite diplomatic efforts, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict continues to be marked by periodic eruptions of violence. The underlying issues of land, settlements, security, and political aspirations remain unresolved, fueling tensions and triggering cycles of violence. In May 2021, clashes between Israeli police and Palestinian protesters at the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound in Jerusalem escalated into an 11-day conflict between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. The conflict resulted in significant casualties and destruction on both sides, highlighting the fragility of the situation. The violence also underscored the deep-seated mistrust and anger that continue to plague the relationship between Israelis and Palestinians. The root causes of the conflict, including the occupation, settlement expansion, and the lack of a political horizon for a two-state solution, remain unaddressed. These unresolved issues create a volatile environment prone to escalation. The international community has repeatedly called for restraint and a return to negotiations, but a lasting solution seems elusive. The cycle of violence continues to trap both Israelis and Palestinians in a spiral of suffering and insecurity. Section 11. Prospects for peace, a long and uncertain road ahead. The path to a just and lasting peace between Israelis and Palestinians remains long and uncertain. Decades of conflict, mistrust, and failed negotiations have created a complex and deeply entrenched situation. Obstacles to peace are numerous and daunting, including the expansion of Israeli settlements, the status of Jerusalem, the right of return for Palestinian refugees, and security concerns. However, despite the challenges, the pursuit of peace remains essential. A two-state solution based on the 1967 borders with mutually agreed-upon land swaps remains the most viable option supported by the international community. Achieving this goal requires a renewed commitment to dialogue, compromise, and a recognition of the legitimate aspirations of both sides. International pressure and engagement are crucial for creating a conducive environment for peace. Addressing the root causes of the conflict, including the occupation, is essential for breaking the cycle of violence. Ultimately, a sustainable peace requires a fundamental shift in mindset on both sides, moving from a zero-sum mentality to one of mutual recognition, respect, and a commitment to a shared future.